Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you? I hope you're doing amazing. Thank you for listening to The Truth About Love all the way to now in episode 13.
Yes,
Welcome.
mashallah.
Yes, I'm Mizi here once again, and with me is the wonderful Lisa Surihani. Lisa, are you excited for today's episode?
Yes. It'll be very interesting to dive deep into it, because we will be exploring a topic which Ustaz Mizi will be introducing in just a few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So worth it to discuss because many have been going through this experience, ultimately frightened by it somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, also trying to find clarity
Mm.
in understanding why they are going through something like this.
Yep.
Take it away, Mizzy. What are we talking about today?
Yes, so today's episode indeed is about can two people who fell in love with each other fall out of love from each other,
Mm.
which is a very big topic.
Right.
Because, yeah.
Why is it a big topic, right? Like we say fall out of love,
Mm,
like it's as easy as saying fall in love, right?
mm-hmm,
But fall out of love,
yeah.
to come up to that, it, it, although we can say it quite easily verbally, but then it's not as casual
Yes,
as it
indeed.
sounds.
Well, the reason why we're doing this again is because I think this is one of the innate fears that many people have when they're about to make a long term commitment, when they could also be very madly in love right now with somebody. But their biggest fear, if you ask them, is what if this doesn't last? And they're not really talking about the marriage as they are talking about the feelings. What if the
Mm-mm.
feelings don't stay forever? What if
Mm.
one day I stop loving this person? What
Mm.
if I fall out of love from my husband, my wife? And that, to me, is a genuine fear. Some people fear that it might happen from within themselves. Some people fear that this might be something that your partner does to them.
Yeah.
One day wake up, the partner says, you know what? I don't feel it anymore.
And it really, really shows how important it is to many of us, where what we feel towards our partner and vice versa is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned just now, it's not so much the notion of matrimony. It's not the sanctity of marriage. It's the feelings that they feel, what they
Mm.
want to be able to feel every day for the rest of their lives with the partners, or with the companion that they have decided to get married to.
Yeah,
You
let's
know.
let's put this out of the way first, which is, um, can two people who fall out of love, Lisa, stay in a marriage till their death?
I wouldn't say it's impossible.
Yeah.
I think I've heard of stories before that, where especially, you know, more often I think yang dah ada anak lah,
Yeah. And some
you
of them,
know.
not just that, some of them might be a lot older, like they have grandkids. And they're not really in love with each other anymore, but it's so inconvenient to
Uh,
leave this
as in like it's leceh, is it?
year. But
Okay,
it's also not so unbearable. It's different, falling out of
right.
love and really hating the guts out of this person that you are with are two
Mm,
different feelings and emotions. You don't despise this person, you just don't
mm,
feel anything special anymore. In
mm,
the previous episode, you spoke about keeping the spark alive.
right.
Maybe this is something like when the sparks die off, no more sparks whatsoever. You don't
Mm,
feel anything anymore and nothing
mm,
special. So,
mm,
can you stay together? I think it is possible, and I think it has happened for many marriages.
yeah.
They just continue to just make it work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Not that hard, to be honest. It's not that hard. People have pretended when things are really bad at home. This is not bad at home. This is just we're we're we're
So
we're
they've come to a certain understanding with one another, like like
sometimes it's not
they.
even communicated. They just know, like,
Oh, wow,
yeah. After a
that's
while,
new.
like I said, yeah. After a while, it's routines, though, right? It's all routines. You
That's
wake up
new
one
for
day and
me.
then if you're grandparents and on the weekends maybe you go to the market together, get the groceries, host the grandchildren. During the
mm,
day on weekdays you do your part-time stuff, or maybe you do
mm,
some gardening or whatever, right?
mm,
Like, they don't have to be in love with each other to be able to
mm.
maintain that look.
Oh, well,
It's a
I would
front.
really like it that I'm still very much in love,
Of
even though
course, we
I'm in
all hope
granny
to.
granny age, you know.
And I've seen that too. It's
Sipping
really sweet.
tea,
Yeah,
sipping
I love
tea.
seeing that. It's really sweet. When our grandparents macam masih pipin tangan and things like that. It's really
Mm,
sweet.
yeah.
When they miss each other, macam my
Mm.
late grandfather, dia kalau my grandma keluar je, mana si Sri tak balik-balik ni, macam gitu, macam dia rindu. Padahal baru sekejap
Oh,
je.
so cute.
So it's
Yeah.
something, you see that too, and it's really sweet.
Yeah.
But you also have to acknowledge that there are some who have actually fallen out of love, but they keep it that way because it's actually easier and more convenient that way.
Right. Wow.
Mm.
Hmm.
So let's talk about this fear. Like I said, sometimes I think the fear, Lisa, is not so much when somebody comes to me and say, Sas, I'm scared one day my husband doesn't love me anymore, or my wife falls out of love
Okay.
and then she loves someone else, for example.
Right.
Sometimes when people come to me, they say, Sas, I'm scared if I stop feeling this.
Yeah.
And I think the only people who would raise that early on are the people who have actually experienced it before, meaning they've had a relationship before this. And suddenly, out of the blue, they realize maybe 2 years, 3 years into the relationship, they're like, I don't really feel anything special anymore with this person. Before
Mm.
we get into marriage,
Mm.
before we get into anything long term,
Mm.
I think I need to tell this person that I'm done, I'm out. And because, Lisa, they felt it before, they're scared that they might feel it again. This time around, in a much more serious setup, like marriage.
But it could also be something where, because it's uncharted territory, like for example, like how, Yusri has told me before, like, I've never had any relationships beyond X amount of years.
Mm.
And then, in my case, like Michelle, for me, it's like
It.
never beyond 8, right? Like
Mm.
never beyond 8 years. Like, and then like, well, not that I actually communicated it, but then it did cross my mind where I was like, wow, actually, like how does one, like, how do we stay in love? But then it wasn't like something that I allowed for the anxiety, the anxious thought itself to consume me, because
Mm.
I was looking at my parents, I think, as a benchmark,
Mm.
and I thought, yeah, it is still possible, and I remembered like my classmates' parents also, like, they're all grandma, grandpa, but still, like you said, pimpin tangan still, and still like when they laugh together and all that, and I was like, actually, boleh je sebenarnya kan?
Mm.
It's just how we work at it. I suppose it's how it works, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I suppose we will just have to work at it, that kind of thing lah. So I thought, okay lah. So that the thought, that fear, that few has asked you did come to me, to be honest, but it
Mm-hmm.
came and went.
Mm.
But yeah, but it's real though.
Yes. It is. It is scary if one day you hear your partner say the words "I don't love you anymore."
Oh gosh, na'uzubillah. Like,
Alhamdulillah. It's scary,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, it's sort of like, how come?
Mm.
Then it's a lot of things that you want to digest, right? Like, you wonder, is it me?
Yeah.
Am I
Of course, the
uninteresting?
first the
Do I
first
not,
question is it me?
Oh
The
yeah,
first
yeah.
question, yeah.
Right.
What did I do? What did I
Yeah.
not do?
What did I not do too? Yeah, yeah. Oh.
I've had this before in front of me. I think I can't remember whether
Oh, okay.
in,
Terkejut. Then you say, I
can't
had
remember
this
whether
before.
I can't remember
Okay.
whether I shared in the truth about love in the previous episodes or whether in
Uh-huh.
some other program, but there was a couple that sat in front of me before and went for counseling, and the guy suddenly said to the girl in front of me, I don't love her anymore, you know, and I could see like her whole world came crashing down, right there and then, hearing those
Subhanallah.
words, because she brought the husband for counseling, hoping that this might be
Help
it. But
to.
then, I allowed the husband to just open up and share what he truly felt. and and he was cold throughout. That was another reason why I wanted him to speak more. He was
mm,
like wasn't really saying much. We giving one word answers. So I just wanted him to be honest, and those were the words that he said. And it's really heartbreaking. It's difficult to accept, but sometimes that is the reality. And that goes to show that it is possible for something like that to happen, even if you've been
mm.
together for a long time.
Yeah. And then from the sounds of it, like knowingly, unknowingly, the wife is trying to see if, like, how do we make this work? Like, and I don't know how else to approach the situation at home.
Mm,
Like people say communicate, but then I'm trying to communicate here, but I'm not getting the response which allows for this to move forward. I need counseling, and then she brings him to counseling,
mm.
and yet this is the you know like the circumstance of of it, and yeah,
I
that
don't
kind
know.
of
Yeah,
really put
I
me
don't really
into.
know whether we can actually prepare couples for this day properly. I don't know whether we
Mm,
can actually help prevent this from happening, apart
mm,
from perhaps what we've been saying many, many times over the last
mm,
few episodes, which is to communicate regularly and frequently.
mm,
Like, if you start feeling even the slightest of feelings that, why am I losing this? Can
mm.
bring it up. First of all, you might want to bring it up directly to your partner. Don't scare them, like, but just tell them that, what, we've not been spending enough time together, and I'm scared that I'm losing, this thing that I had for you when we
Yeah,
first met.
yeah.
Or maybe we've allowed the kids to get in the way so much of our relationship that I'm starting to lose what we had when it was just the two of us.
Mm,
Bringing these things up early, I think, may help. Yeah.
mm, mm.
Either you start figuring out how you can prevent it from getting worse,
Yeah, yeah.
or it actually helps your partner to prepare for the eventual outcome,
Yeah.
which is the worst thing lah. But at
I
least
think
a
I,
bit
I think
cushioned.
the key point as well in following up from what you're saying is how, like, when you kind of facing that kind of turmoil, internally, is to actually address it quite quickly,
Mm-hmm.
rather than to let it sort of like see how it goes, and
Mm-hmm.
because of frustrations, in a marriage, or can kind of take your heart to dark places,
Mm-hmm.
where you sort of allow it to manifest, you allow it to accumulate, and 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 this in turn also sort of like, because so much is pent up inside and not really expressed and discussed, and suddenly, like, every little thing bothers you, or like, or it bothers you, maybe something, but sometimes maybe unimpress you, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
like, you're sort of like, like, and there's annoyance,
Mm-hmm.
these are all real feelings that can sort of generate, if 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 it's not tackled from the very beginning, like how Ustaz was saying.
That's true.
So I think, yeah, like first point, how how important it is in a marriage is the communication has to be done regularly and frequently. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing, like, it's not just about what bothers you and what annoys you or what frustrates you. Maybe it's also highlighting things that you can appreciate.
Yes, that's true.
I think that would also help with making it nice, and sort of like, although it may not happen very often because
Mm-hmm.
of life happens and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and like, what's the big deal dia bagi air ke I or something like that ke apa ke, but then you're like, macam, thank you so much, it's really sweet of you to give me some water,
Yeah.
when you
Thanks.
actually, like, if you know what I mean, like, Ustaz.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we need to focus on both. It's not just about prevention, but also adding more value to the
Yeah,
relationship and making
yeah.
your partner feel loved and appreciated. Which, thank you for bringing this up, because I want to also raise how the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in his marriage. Kan,
Mm.
he was actually very playful, and I think being playful is important in a marriage. You can be playful in many different ways. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was, known to even play catching, dengan the wife. Like he would chase
Oh,
after
like
the wife would
kejar-kejar.
make kejar-kejar. And,
Hmm.
that adds something to the marriage. You feel,
Excitement,
yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Um, and there's
But don't
also,
lah, don't lah macam Mr. Boogeyman pula buat macam tu kan. I cannot.
you cannot,
I
I
can.
know there's this husband and wife in Singapore. Some of you may know them, Chef Bob. So Chef Bob ni dia suka post dekat Instagram and his TikTok how he suka do that to the wife. Macam the wife macam senang apa?
Terkejut.
Melata.
Oh.
So and he loves to kacau. Ya Allah. Oh banyak kesian wife dia. So
Oh, poor thing.
you can find like tens of those type of videos lah. So he
Oh
always
yeah,
does
I'll
that.
check it out.
So funny. Anyways, Chef Bob, thank you for entertaining us, but don't do that to your wife anymore, okay? Um, what I wanted to say is the playfulness is important. Also the
Mm,
manjaness. The Prophet
mm,
ﷺ was known to sometimes rest his head on the wife's lap. Instead
mm.
of the opposite, where sometimes people see that, only the wife yang manja letak kepala on the
Yeah, yeah.
husband's lap, but the Prophet ﷺ actually did the opposite. He rested his head on the wife's
Mm,
lap, and
mm,
and sometimes he would close his eyes and rest and fall asleep, and the wife would play with his hair, like
mm,
those kind of stuff. Don't underestimate them. They're not
mm,
they're not small.
mm.
So you need to know your
It
partner's.
helps with bringing up like good feelings inside our
Mm,
body. Kan
mm,
it raises the oxytocin in our body.
oxytocins,
Yeah,
yes.
when we hug, and caress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those, with I mean halal, I mean,
Yes,
like when all that
correct.
is done, it kind of helps to soothe. It helps to
Yes.
soothe us, kan? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like being playful in marriage. But I would like to say,
Mm.
I would like to say, okay, kejar mengejar, just don't do it in a Mr. Boogeyman style. That's all well and good. But maybe tickling, maybe it's something that can be off limits, lah.
Is it
You
because
know,
you don't like to be tickled, or?
Yusri loves it. He,
Yeah.
he 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 loves tickling me. So I'm like, I'm always like, fearful of that. Like every time that he just goes, like I just want to rest my hand there. He'll say, and I'm like, yeah, right. Because after that he'll just like tickle.
But that's what keeps it exciting and fun,
Yeah, lah,
Yeah.
betul lah. It
Yeah.
does. It does. It does. Yeah.
So keep those things alive. If you
Mm.
like going out together, if you like taking photos together, there are so many things lah that you can do together. Some like to sing together. They would switch on their karaoke and sing off key, and they're happy. So let them.
Well, yeah, whatever works, right? Macam in my case, like Yusri is so shy when it comes to taking photos. Masya Allah, dia memang jenis yang pemalu, sangat.
Mm,
Like I live in a very typical setting where I'm the one who's like of him and the kids, and there's not many pictures of me and the kids. you know
yeah.
so why do you feel it, Missy? Do you understand? I feel your wife. But anyways, yeah, so and then karaoke, he's so shy and all that,
Mm.
but if we can
It's
find
interesting though
something.
that he was like on the cover of so many magazines, and he was a singer. Like.
I think yeah, we've spoken about this, and it's
Mm.
interesting how like we live our lives, and depending on the cost that we take in for survival, then the number of masks that we have, like and
Understand
or facade,
the roles that you had to play lah.
yeah. So because it was a lot of investment of energy for him,
Mm.
but then he was like, it was a lot for him. He admitted to me. He was more of the creative process kind of guy. Like that was where his comfort zone was. Like
Yeah, I
where
can
he
imagine he
truly.
was really alive in the studio when
Oh yeah,
recording and coming
yeah,
up with yeah.
yeah.
Understand.
So
I kind of
yeah.
understand. I can relate.
Mm.
I'm not really the.
You're not boy band,
Yeah,
but then like.
whatever that he said, I can totally relate. Yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
love I love behind the scenes stuff. To be honest, when I do my events, and I've done many events, like you've been a part of one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love the behind the scenes part. I love coming up. I love
Coming up with
conceptualizing
it,
it. I love
right?
planning it. I love coming up the titles, the topics. I love the angling of it. I love all of that. I don't necessarily enjoy being on stage and speaking,
Mm.
which
It's
is
a different feeling,
interesting.
isn't it? Like
Yeah.
the minute you're on stage and you're like, wait a minute, I'm tabling out everything that I've worked on, like
Yeah.
this past few weeks,
Yeah.
months, maybe,
I'm not
and
saying
then
I hate it. I'm just saying that I enjoy more the behind the scenes process.
right, right,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. I can understand that. Maybe if we would like to touch on maybe couples who have been around for, I mean, been together for a long, long time, and they probably feel like, what's there to look for lah, in each other, what we like to do together, hobbies lah, all that, like, what's their life, it's us at home lah, watch TV, and then, we're very homely people
Mhm.
anyway.
I think it's really good for couples who are already talking about this and maybe they are in their 30s, like the two of us, or
Mm,
maybe they're in their 40s, to maybe
mm,
start planning ahead. Like, when we finally retire, when we
mm,
have grandkids or we don't, whatever,
mm,
what do you see ourselves doing every day? Just start asking that, right? Just
mm,
start
mm,
asking that, and so that you can plan something because some actually genuinely love to travel, so maybe that's their plan. Some
mm,
genuinely just look forward because they know they're going to have grandkids coming over a lot. That's their plan. Some,
mm.
they like I said earlier, gardening and things like that. It's really something that grows on you, no pun intended. It grows on you
Right.
uh, when you get older, can.
Mm,
And so I guess it's important to just discuss it. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's okay to, I guess from there we can, what the takeout that we can take from Ustaz's point, Ustaz with an apostrophe S here, Ustaz's point, um, is that this does not necessarily have to be something that is figured out on your own lah, kan? Like, it's something that you could discuss together, like something that you could, like, sort of like, like, once the kids hit on
Are
to
grown up.
their
Yeah.
tertiary education,
Yeah, even
they
then,
months after they
correct. Even then,
settle.
I mean, for my wife and I think one of the things, because we're moving house soon,
Mm,
inshallah, we're selling off our current property and we want to upgrade. But then when the kids hit a certain age, we do have plans to downgrade back,
mm,
and live a simpler life. That's part of our plan. And so we have talked about it a bit. So I would encourage couples to have more conversations about this, lah.
mm,
Everything
mm,
from
mm,
place of residence and how about the kids and your career. Do you plan to retire completely young? In Singapore, as you know, we're encouraged to continue working way into our 70s. Like
I see.
in Malaysia, I think you have an example really in one of your former prime ministers in 90s still working. And so so I mean, I think to each his own. I think you know what you want to look forward to. You know what excites you, what keeps you alive. But more
Mm,
importantly, what would keep the two of you close together. Yeah.
mm,
Um, so when we look at reasons, Lisa, of why some people may fall out of love, some of the reasons is that they said, oh, because we argue a lot. And it makes me tired to always fight and argue and
mm,
quarrel. Every day I come back home and I'm expecting another argument. And I'm sick of it. And we've been married for 10 years and I don't remember a week went by where we didn't fight. We always had something that we wanted to argue about. And it seems like both of us have this ego problem where if it's not him, it's me. If it's not her, it's me. It's like,
mm, mm,
and I'm just so tired of that. I don't feel loved anymore, and I don't love this person so much anymore because the first thought that comes to mind when I think of my partner is that we're gonna fight about something.
mm. Or I'm angry at him or her.
Yeah.
Mm,
So be mindful of that, guys. If you're fighting way too often, there may be something wrong there. You need to look into it. You need to see, okay, what can be done to lessen the frequency of our arguments.
yeah.
List down the triggers. What do we normally fight about? When you are more aware of what you're fighting about, I think it's actually going to help you to know how to avoid those conversations or those arguments in the
Mm,
future. So that's one area. Um, Another area, Lisa, is that when you feel underappreciated. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a lot for the family. You're pumping in resources. You're contributing to the family finances. You're supporting, things at home. You're doing a ton of house chores. You have four, five, six kids. You're managing everyone's meals, everyone's laundry. You're doing all of that, and not a day that has gone by where you've actually heard your partner saying thank you for all that you've done. I really appreciate you doing all of this, and you don't hear that, and you feel so underappreciated that it causes you to actually fall out of love. That is also possible.
Wow.
Mm. So like you said earlier, kan tadi you cakap saying thank you for doing this, thank you for taking
Mm-mm.
care of that. Small little thank yous here and there every now and then
It's nice.
reminds your partner
Mm.
that their actions are being acknowledged
Mm.
and appreciated. And sometimes that's all that we want. We may not be appreciated by people at work, we may not be appreciated by our extended family members, but if the one person in our life that matters most, our spouse, says thank you, that might actually make a huge difference in our life.
Mm. True. Can I follow up on that like one more point before you?
Mm-hmm.
I think another one that can be um how do I say, one of the reasons is actually the loss of respect.
Mm.
The loss of respect in with regards to um difference of mindset,
Okay.
or maybe like certain things that he should be performing, like say certain things yang the husband is supposed to fulfill, tanggung jawab.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of this because you read it in the Quran, and you read your religious beneficial books and all that stuff, and then you see that like the husband may not be fulfilling these duties,
Yeah.
and then there's loss for respect. Why I mentioned this is because I've been hearing stories from people sharing with me that
Mm.
they're struggling with that. Because when they want to talk about it, it turns into an argument, and then it's frustration because day in day out they live with the guy, and they live with the husband, but the husband is not performing as per what he should be
Yeah.
doing you know so loss of respect that allows for the frustration to manifest.
Mm.
um, that too can be one of the reasons, actually.
Yes. Thank you for bringing this up because I do get messages every now and then, um, mainly coming from women. Though they say like, my
Mm-hmm.
husband in one area specifically is, I want to start praying, but my husband doesn't want to support. Or I want to go belajar agama, my husband always says no. Or I want
Oh,
to start wearing the hijab, my husband says, I'm not ready for you to do that yet. So it's not just them not leading the way, they're also becoming an obstruction
oh, it's
to
like
their
deterrent,
change.
like yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
it's a double whammy, I think. And the women start to lose what you said is the respect. Lah.
Mm-mm.
Because I respect you to be the one leading the way. But
Mm-mm.
since you're not leading the way, and I've been reminding you or giving you opportunities to do that, and you're not doing it,
Mm.
I'm starting to lose not just respect but also love for you. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, that's
But there
definitely
are
true.
instances where I feel that they could give the husband some break lah. Like macam for example, when at the start of our MCO, and then I noticed that there were some that were complaining because obviously at the start of MCO, many of the men could no longer go to the mosque, right?
Yes.
Because of MCO, and um, and then a lot of the ustaz, a lot of the ulamas were sharing that like, hey, this is your chance to spend time with your family. You can do jama'ah with your family. Like, this is a good thing in trying to show the hikmah, right? The hikmah that that there is yang boleh ada
Mm-hmm.
in your household, right? And then it was strange for me to see how dismissive the reactions were in the response, where they were saying, Allah, laki aku boleh baca Al-Ikhlas sahaja
Mm.
in each rakaat,
Mm.
you know? and but which was kind of like which made me feel kind of like, but you know, it's even if it's al ikhlas, even though even though it is one of the, it's not the shortest surah, but it's, you know, like the apa, one of the tiga kul ke apa ke, but it's still a surah after al-fatihah, you know. And inshallah one day he will start doing different surahs, you know, like macam it would be nice if you could sangka baik at that as well kan, macam,
Yeah.
but you know.
I mean, I did do, I think, an IG live to talk about this, and I said that it's not just about giving your husband the chance to lead, but also giving them encouragement. I
Mm,
told the wives, if your husband is able to lead one time and he's never done it before, or he never had the confidence to do it,
mm,
cheer him on and say things like, seronoknya dengar, my husband jadi imam and dengar
mm,
bacaan dia kuat-kuat. Macam,
mhm,
just do that. How
mhm,
men, and I'm a man, and I know that
mm,
when your wife praises you and compliments you, it gives you more self-belief. And then you
mm.
want to try more, you want to do more.
Yeah,
So
that's
sometimes
nice.
that's what's
Yeah,
needed.
yeah. And say like macam, you know, like, you know, sometimes they even sometimes they beat themselves up about it, like macam, Allah, apalah aku boleh baca pun Al-Ikhlas je. And you'll be like, but Al-Ikhlas is it's such an amazing surah. It's
Mm-mm.
such a powerful surah. It's
Mm.
amazing that you're reading Al-Ikhlas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, or something like that, right? Like, you know, so I mean, rather than, you know, sometimes they themselves yang tengah rasa beaten up about it, and we don't have to add on to it kan. Tapi
Yep.
coming back again to, you know, how these are real reasons that we've heard of before, where they lose
Yes.
respect because of they are aware of the duties and responsibilities, or rather what their hopes are in the men of the house or the king of the house to be their imam or their guide, you know, to Jannah, or
Yep.
to be on the right path, etc. So yeah, that becomes very, it's a very sensitive issue as well, because you know, um,
That's why, when you want to enter into marriage, you need to know your roles and responsibilities, and you also need to know your partner's expectations of you.
mm,
Some women, maybe their expectations are not that high. Dia cakap, as long as my husband can become the imam, solat jemaah, I'm good enough. Some
mm,
women, they expect their husbands to be able to read the Quran and then teach the children the Quran.
mm,
That is a bit, the stakes are higher. Some
yeah,
want the husband to bawa family pergi belajar agama every week, things like that.
right,
Commitment is greater. So there are different expectations. So you need to be clear with your partner from the very beginning. One of the things that I value most in a relationship, and inshallah in our marriage, will be religion. Okay? So I want you to really take care of this. I want you to lead the way. I want you to guide us. I want you to take responsibility. And the guy's job would be to ask, so what do you mean by responsibility, guidance?
mm,
Break it down for me.
mm,
Because it may sound like you communicated, but it's actually not very clear.
right,
Be clear from the very beginning. Like, I
mm.
want,
I want you to
tadi
be
lah,
able to do this. I want you
macam
to
tadi
be
I
able
cakap,
to do
yes.
that. Right.
And not just say lead and guide, because it's too generic, it's too vague, rather.
Mm,
And then the husband may say, but I've done my duties. And the wife
mm.
say no. And the problem is communication wasn't clear.
But what if, okay, like, I mean, I don't mean to be an advocate here, but then, like, you know, there are instances where there are couples that they are at different places with regards to spirituality at the beginning of their marriage, and then, you know, as time pass on, then they become, maybe it's either that they're on the journey together or they're not. You know, like, and they all depend. It's all pursuant to circumstance or experience or influence, etc., etc. Books that they read maybe on their own time and all that, right? Or at the end, or you know, to sort of like to encompass Allah's decree, whoever He gives hidayah to. You know, it could be that He gave hidayah to one partner and not the other, right? So you know, like like there are scenarios that do happen when they are already in the marriage, if you know what I mean. Like, and then they started off differently, and then suddenly it's like now I have this new set of expectations, right? um
And
yeah.
that's a bit tough because it wasn't communicated early, and this happens to actually a lot of people too. Like
Mm,
they never really prioritized religion back in the
mm,
day when they started
mm,
get to know each other, when they got married.
mm.
But
Yeah.
as they age, and age does do this to some of us, right? We
Mm,
get wiser, or maybe we've gone through some really tough times, and we realize that God helped us get through it, and now you feel like you want to get closer to God.
mm,
Okay, you feel almost like a born again Muslim,
mm,
and you may feel it personally, but to expect your partner to also feel how you're feeling can be a bit unfair. A bit unfair.
mm,
Why? Yes, even though it's a good thing, but
mm,
your radical transformation can be a bit um, too much for your partner to deal with.
mm,
Like
mm.
they can take it bit by bit, slowly, but just everything just completely changed about you.
Right.
It's tough because for them it's like I'm almost now married to someone else.
So it's like in that kind of scenario, we could say that, like before you start deciding on losing respect, or like, thinking that you've fallen out of love for your partner just because you're at different places with regards to spirituality. We're talking about the example where you have been married for quite a while and all that, and then hidayah hit you first lah, contohnya, you
Okay.
know. So in that kind of scenario, it would be best for you to like take, like cerminkan diri dulu and wonder whether or not is it fair for you to be thinking this way or not. Is it actually nice of you as a believer to be thinking this way or not?
Mm.
Like, it could be something where you remind yourself to always, like, sangka baik,
Mm-hmm.
doakan, moga moga your partner dibukakan hati or
Yes.
dilembutkan hati supaya boleh nak belajar lebih pasal agama,
Yeah.
and without making the marriage sort of like um, tension, because what you want is harmony
Mm-hmm.
in the household. Is, sometimes a little goes a long way. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like, when you yourself keep doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the midst of you making your dua, and of course you have to zikir to Allah as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, hopefully, in time, maybe that would be something that may encourage your partner to do the same.
Mm.
You know,
Exactly.
if you feel that it's too sensitive to talk about it and all
Yeah.
that, because
I yeah, I agree because I
mm,
think the way to do this, if you notice, and that's why it's important to have some self-awareness. If you notice that you're moving a bit too quickly for your partner,
mm,
then when you raise this topic or this conversation with your partner, I
mm,
think do it gradually, do it subtly, do it
mm,
gradually.
mm,
Don't be too imposing.
mm,
And like you said earlier, make constant du'as for them and for your
yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, the communication part can be tricky in the beginning because you may be at a different place
Mm-hmm.
of knowledge at that point of time,
Yeah.
and your partner might be at a different place of knowledge at that time. Like, what you have already digested for the past few years, maybe, or
Mm.
in the recent time, it could be different, kan. So, like, macam, yeah, like Ustaz says, um, there's gotta be skill and an art to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I hope you guys are more skilled when it comes to this as the
Inshallah.
years in your marriage, move on.
Mm. It helps lah, like macam as you know your partner a lot more, you understand the person inside out.
Mhm.
After a while, you macam tahu cara nak cakap, that,
Yes.
like how you
Nobody knows your partner more than you do. Okay,
mm,
especially if you've been married for maybe 3, 5, 7 more years. I'm sure you
mm,
know your partner's weaknesses and your sweet spots and
mm,
what offends them and what doesn't, and
mm,
use all of that knowledge to your advantage in terms
mm,
of how
mm,
you convey whatever you want to convey from your heart. Okay.
mm.
Okay, so a few other things that may cause people to fall out of love is when the trust is broken, Lisa. So,
Oh,
and normally more than once. Once, kadang-kadang I can still see some couples fixing it, making it
forgiving
work,
it.
forgiving each other.
Yeah.
But when you have forgiven them once and then they repeat it again,
Mm.
I think I could almost see like a chunk of their trust and their love is taken out of your heart and just
Yeah.
thrown away, like it
Yeah,
happens again and boom, throw it away.
yes. The heart is broken into cracks kan.
Yeah.
Macam dah tak sempurna, or rather metaphorically speaking.
Mm.
But then would you say when a trust is broken, the most common factor would be because there is an existence or there is a presence of
Could be
a
another
third
person.
person.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be. But I've also seen marriages that broke apart because trust was broken not because of a person, but
Oh,
because of money. And we spoke
huh?
about this before, money kan. So macam
Okay.
gini, dia macam you take the money from the family account and then you said that you're not going to touch that, but you used it for your own use,
Oh
or
no.
to use it for your business,
Mm.
or to pay off your debts, your loans from the loan
Mm,
shark ke
mm,
apa, or you take it and you gamble the money away,
mm.
or you take it to buy drugs and things like that.
Oh, I
Sometimes it's
see.
money also,
Mm,
or
mm,
or
mm.
addictions, like I said, drugs could also be it. You said you will not
Mm,
do it again, but you would do it again. Trust is
mm.
also broken
Right, right.
in those
A
kind of
lot of
instances.
deception or
Betul?
fraud and
Betul?
oh yeah, okay.
Mm. So trust is really very fragile, for sure.
Mm. Oh yeah.
And the hardest thing to rebuild is really broken trust.
Mm. Well said.
So
Yes.
yeah, but going to your example earlier, that one other thing, maybe one last thing we can talk about is the presence of another party.
Mm.
Um, and this person does not necessarily have to be an active person. Maknanya you're not like actively trying to win over the heart of one of the persons in the relationship, in the marriage. They could just
Okay.
be present there. They could just be a friend or an extended, someone there, someone present, someone available, and the person starts thinking and starts fantasizing in a way that, my marriage is so boring, so mundane, so
Mm.
uneventful. There are no
Mm.
surprises. It's all routine. When
Mm,
I look at
mm,
that
mm.
person, I think we would enjoy more because we share more things in common.
There's something about that so and so.
Yeah.
Something about it's something exciting. It's
Yeah.
something.
Either,
Oh,
we enjoy doing the same stuff, or we like
mm.
the same kind of things, same kind of
Ayo.
books that we read, or we both like to travel. My partner does like to travel. Macam things like that. But it's not even true. There isn't maybe even a real connection, but you just start imagining it in your head.
Mm.
And, there doesn't even need to be that relationship with that third person. It's all in your head, and you start losing feelings for your current partner because you start attaching emotions to this fantasy of
Other
yours.
right. It's not the energy is no longer invested in this particular person. It's just being invested into something else right now.
Mm.
So that's why in your mind, tangibly, when you see this person, that feeling is not the same as when
Mm.
you maybe
Yeah,
you know
because then you're like looking at your partner and you're like sighing and like, if only he's more like that. If only she's more like this. You know,
dangerous.
yeah, dangerous. But so
Talking about
the more you entertain those thoughts, that's when it gets
mm,
dangerous. You can
yeah.
brush it off and say and communicate instead to your partner. Dear, you know what I love to do, and hopefully, you can join me one of these days. I love to, cook with you,
Mm-mm,
or for example, do something.
mm-mm,
Let's cook a storm in the kitchen together. That would be nice.
mm-mm,
I've always wanted to do that. Just something
mm,
like that. Maybe the person you like loves to cook, so that's why you wonder what it's like. Maybe I can enjoy it with my own partner,
mm.
and do that instead. So that's how you overcome it, and you avoid falling into that trap of constantly wondering and thinking and fantasizing about what it will be like.
Yeah, but just a little tip. Janganlah pula cakap macam, like so and so.
Yes.
You do
Mm.
that, and then your partner is going to feel like, you know what? You're not going to change me. This is
Mm.
me.
Mm.
you know,
And
it
also
is,
they'll feel hurt, like, oh, you mean
of
I'm not good
course.
enough? You mean that person is better?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Never start off with, tengok dia tu kan bagus dia macam gitu. Don't start like that.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Thank you
No,
for
no, no,
bringing that
no.
up. Yeah, it should never
Yeah,
be that way.
yeah. Because, yeah, when you mentioned something and it kept on replaying back in my head when you said, like, don't entertain. When you said that don't entertain those feelings or those thoughts, that, that kind. And it's interesting how we actually have that control in what we feed. Okay, so I'm not talking about feeding ourselves food. I'm talking about thoughts. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And thoughts and feelings can grow or can be fed to grow
Mm-hmm.
um, because how we control that. And that is really a strong power that we have sebenarnya.
Yeah.
If we're not careful with it, and then we allow for it to be fed, for it to grow, it will therefore grow,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
amazing how one can do that actually, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so just be mindful of this.
Mm.
Obviously, we can also talk about the more serious thing, lah, meaning there literally is a person. I wanted to highlight first that there isn't really a person actively involved in
Mm.
this whole scenario.
Mm-mm.
But of course, we can also talk about when there is someone actively involved.
Itu
And
lagi dangerous.
that is even harder. It's even
Mm.
harder because I'm not saying it's impossible for you to get back, but it's just going to be a lot harder. It's going to require a lot more work.
Mm.
It's going to make your heart very confused. It's going to make your mind confused and overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, I mean, the other part is really when there is an active person involved, lah. And this is the great,
Mm.
great worry. When that person is very involved, it normally causes us more confusion. Our heart will be confused, our mind will be confused and
Yes,
overwhelmed.
yes.
We don't know how to prioritize, we don't know what to choose.
Mm.
And
And we don't know, suddenly a lot of things are blurred, isn't it? Like we
yeah,
don't know what's right. We don't know what's right becomes like the issue there, because like the other party feels more right,
yeah.
if that makes any sense.
Normally when these things happen, the initial reaction is that the initial feeling rather is
Mm.
this feels wrong but right at the same time. That's normally what people
Oh,
often say. It's wrong
wow.
because it's wrong, but it
Mm.
feels right because that's what you're feeling.
Mm.
So I think you
That they don't
gotta
want to deny it.
you gotta retreat back
Mm.
and ask yourself, what is this? Is this gonna go anywhere? Is this bad? Is this something I can control? Is this
Mm.
something that's gonna get worse? And then make a decision. Is it impossible for you to get back to your partner even after being in such a scenario? It's not
Mm.
impossible. You can always rebuild something, even if it's lost. You need to have faith and you need to be committed to it and you need to be sincere and genuine. And inshallah, Allah will, help you get back.
Inshallah.
Mm.
Inshallah. Wow, that was
Yeah.
quite the topic. Quite the topic, Mizzy. But then, like at least, it's great that we touched on this, the
Mm.
realities about love that we wanted to expand our discussion on. Falling out of love is something that is possible, that can happen. And Ustaz earlier shared about why it may happen, and also what are the common conceptions about it or misconceptions about it.
Mm.
I guess, like, whether or not we have, I think our conclusion to this discussion would be somewhat open-ended, depending on the scenario.
Mm.
The one of the most important takeouts that I could take from what you shared earlier was how we must be very much aware and allow for the mind and the heart to work together.
Yes.
At what kind of ratio? At what kind of ratio? I think, like it's pursuant to you as an individual on how you work that out, because sometimes it requires a lot more heart to understand how
Mm.
much you have to sankabai at the situation, and not be and not think negatively about it.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need a lot more heart to tweak that in the brain or in the mind. So yeah, so I guess
Yes, that's it.
that's
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I
mhm,
hope that conversation helps you to maybe prepare,
mm,
prevent, work on your marriage a bit more, communicate more with your partner, or even try to work on fixing whatever that may have made you confused before this. Okay?
inshallah, amin.
So thank you once again and take care. And we look forward to the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.